Time is running out for municipal councils to elect new leaders. Coalition talks are underway in the 5 hung metros. Parties say there have been some tough negotiations. eNCA's Pule Letshwiti-Jones is following developments and joins me now for an update to see what has been happening. So, Pule, let's start with the big ones, the big electoral prizes that no one really claimed. People led in those big electoral prizes of City of Joburg and City of Tshwane, but there was no outright winner. What's been happening in as far as negotiations are concerned? Let's start with Joburg.
Well, we understand that, the negotiations right now at full throttle, and we do know that the statements that have been made by EFF leader Julius Malema yesterday when he met the King in the Eastern Cape regarding how the Action SA wasn't quite happy when they tabled that most of the backing would come from the ANC as well in terms of numbers. So what he basically said was they were willing to give Herman Mashaba Johannesburg, they would then take Tshwane, and the ANC takes Ekurhuleni, and then they would run these governments separately on their own without coalition partners. But, as we understand, talks have been going on from this whole week. We do understand that there's been meetings taking place between the DA as well and, of course, Action SA throughout this week. On Thursday as well, they met again, and that's where we understand that what we know is that Action SA, some of the guys inside were telling us that they weren't quite happy with some of the policies that were tabled by the DA as well, especially in the city of Tshwane as well. But they went back again to say they should go back to a drawing board and come back again. With the EFF, we also understand that they met Action SA on Thursday, where they were quite impressed with the presentations. But we were shocked when we saw the statement that was released yesterday to say Action SA is walking away from the talks with the EFF. Yes. And, as that's quite developing, it's interesting to see what will be taking place next.
What's that about? I think I heard that Action SA says they are not able to work with the EFF in coalition arrangements. What's that about? Well,
you understand that throughout his campaign, Action SA leader Herman Mashaba has been quite consistent to say, I will not go into a coalition government with the ANC for whatever reason it is, given their track record. But what we know is that Julius Malema as well has made those pronouncements to say that most of the numbers would come from the ANC in order for them to form a quorum, which would then elect a council speaker and mayor in whichever council it is in Joburg or Tshwane. But those numbers that are needed are from the ANC as well. And upon realizing that, that's where we then found out that Action SA leader Herman Mashaba said they would be pulling out from those talks because they're not quite comfortable with having to get that backup from the ANC. So there's quite a lot that's been going on as well. And what we understand is that we were told as well by the DA at some point that Action SA didn't arrive with their full delegation in the city of Tshwane in terms of talks. So, the talks have been heated and there's been some sort of disagreements that have been going on as well. Yeah. And parties are just waiting to finalize those talks as well.
Where is the ANC in this whole mix? Because they do represent in many of these instances a significant block in terms of representation of the electoral outcome. So I imagine that in as much as many opposition political parties have been saying that they will not work with the ANC, you can't ignore the ANC altogether in these conversations. Do we have an idea of what kind of conversations are they having?
Just a few days ago, the president said, look, if we have to go into a position, we'll go into a position, right? We will not just be dragged by any party who is trying to boast saying that we want to go into coalition talks with them, right? But what you understand is that the ANC has also been benching on the smaller parties as well, such as Al-Jama. I spoke to some of the guys from COPA saying they were closely in talks with the ANC as well and they're about to finalize as well. But we also have the IFP as well, which were working quite well under the leadership of the late Jolidi Matonga as well, passed on, and of course now with Mpweme Rane. So they are benching on those small parties that are coming up as well, which would actually give them a boost if they go into coalition with those parties and the EFF. And they could be quite a formidable party in the city of Joburg when it comes to talks there. But as it is right now, if they were to get that clinch on Action SA as well, that would give them a quite good opportunity to actually govern the city of Ekurhuleni. But that's not how it is right now, as we're seeing Herman Mashaba saying they're not quite happy as to going into coalition talks with the ANC. But Tulas, what's at the center of this is a leadership crisis in the ANC as well. Yeah. What we're seeing now is that with the names, especially in the city of Tshwane, the regional secretary, Khosi Mayap, has been there.
But that was a big surprise.
He's been there since 2019, but he's not on the list, right? We have the likes of Simphiwe Mbatha, who's in the provincial parliament as well. And some of the members in the ANC are not quite happy with that. And this could actually brew what we saw in 2016 where we saw the likes of now Togo Didiza about to be endorsed to get into power, and regional executive committee members were not quite happy. But what we do know is that the likes of Franz Bushilo, REC member in the ANC in Tshwane, are quite favourable candidates to actually become mayor. We're also seeing now in the city of Johannesburg with some disgruntled ANC member calling for the removal of Regional Secretary Dada Munero's name on the list, saying he should be removed as well because he is a regional secretary and they believe that he shouldn't be on the list as it is.
Yeah, that's always a difficult one with the ANC because their secretaries really do run the organization. So that the trade-off between sending a secretary to a government position and leaving them at headquarters or provincial headquarters or regional headquarters is always a debate. So that's the situation in Gauteng,
right.
Pule. You've been scanning as well, though, in terms of developments around formation of coalitions in other areas. What can you tell me? What's emerging? Nelson Mandela Bay, for example.
Well, you know, being quite closely key to some of the members in terms of Sasolburg as well, where we do know that there was a coalition there in terms of the SACP, ANC and the EFF. But we do understand that there are quite good talks that are going on between the ANC and the EFF to actually give the EFF the chance to run in the Sasolburg municipality, which we do know that before the council collapsed was being headed by the DA and some opposition parties as well. So that's quite a key centre in Sasolburg. Manaung has been quite great in terms of the ANC actually trying to get those numbers there. Then you have the notorious Maluti Apofong, where there's the likes of MAP 16. These are some of the councillors who were in the ANC that were expelled by the party, went on to form their own independent movement and did quite well in these elections. So they're also trying to gun in for those coalition talks with the ANC as well. We do understand that there's a hand of the EFF there as well. Then you move down to the Western Cape, where we saw Helen Zille as well tweeting just recently saying that they were welcoming their first inaugural coalition talk as well. We do know that in the Cederberg municipality there's a coalition going on there between the DA, Freedom Front Plus and the Cederberg Eerste movement that has been taking place there.
Yeah, I understand you have an excerpt that you wanted to share with us. Is it one of the representatives of the political parties on the talks?
Yes, quite frankly, Action SA leader Herman Mashaba saying we haven't finalized anything yet, but it's quite hearted meetings that we do understand that the party, some of the party insiders within Action SA saying they're expecting some of those coalition agreements to be formed by Monday, which is this coming Monday, to actually start revealing some of those partnerships that will be going into place. You'd remember that this is the last week for them to actually start now getting into those agreements so that council can convene, and so a speaker.
The clock started ticking from the moment
definitely.
The results were finally gazetted with the lists of people who have been elected in the various councils.
So it's quite a lot that's been happening, and they're running out of time because if they don't form these coalition agreements, then you can't have a council that will then allow for the election of a speaker and a mayor. Then the city manager now has to come in, and after 90 days it's where the by-elections come in for a rerun as well. Yeah,
that's actually the worst-case scenario, that we could end up with elections being rerun in some of these municipalities.
And what is it right now? If you look at how it's going on in the city of Tshwane, you'd know that, of course, history does give that the DA has been in great coalition talks with the Freedom Front. Plus, we have the likes of MMC Saki Duploy, who's been one of the front runners for the Freedom Front Plus in Tshwane. So that agreement there is already solid. And then what we understand is that some of the coalition talks in the parts of Northern Cape as well has been going quite well for the DA as well. So they're actually going into those agreements with some of these small established movements and, of course, some of these independent parties to try and get those numbers. Look what's happening in Umgeni right now, where we see the likes of Christopher Papas as well, who was supposed to be inaugurated as mayor, but the DA and EFF walked out, meaning the quorum couldn't form and collapsing the council meeting because they're saying the council speaker there was
he ended up taking an oath at a magistrate's court. All right, Pule Letshwiti-Jones, thank you for scanning the environment in as far as the coalition negotiations are concerned. The clock is ticking because, in terms of the law, legislation and the constitution, certain processes need to get underway in time for the formation of those councils within 21 days of the gazetting of the election results.